Welcome to the listening section of the TOEFL mock test, brought to you by Spinta. This section measures your ability to understand conversations and lectures in English. In this section, you will listen to several conversations and academic lectures. Each conversation and lecture is followed by a number of questions. You will hear each conversation or lecture only one time. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to help you answer the questions. Some of the questions will replay part of the audio for you. Answer the questions based on what is stated or implied by the speakers. You must answer each question before moving on. You cannot return to previous questions in this section.
Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about ecosystem dynamics with a particular focus on the role of keystone species and on practical approaches to ecological restoration. When ecologists talk about ecosystem dynamics, they mean the flows of energy and matter through trophic levels and the network of interactions among species. Those interactions include predation, competition, mutualism, and facilitation. All of these shape community composition and ecosystem functions, such as primary productivity, nutrient cycling, and decomposition. A central concept I want you to keep in mind is that of a keystone species. A keystone species is one that has a disproportionately large effect on its ecosystem relative to its abundance. Removing or reintroducing a keystone species can change species composition and even physical features of the environment. One of the most striking examples of a trophic cascade occurred in Yellowstone when wolves were reintroduced. The return of wolves reduced elk browsing pressure, which allowed willows and aspens to recover along riverbanks. That vegetation change stabilized riverbanks and altered stream morphology, demonstrating how a predator can indirectly influence physical processes. Keystone effects are not limited to large predators. Beavers, for example, act as ecosystem engineers by creating ponds that increase habitat heterogeneity and biodiversity. In Europe and North America, beaver reintroduction has been used as a restoration tool to recover wetlands and improve water retention in landscapes. Another example comes from coastal ecosystems. In Bangladesh and parts of Southeast Asia, mangrove restoration projects have been deployed to reduce storm surge damage. Restored mangroves also enhance nursery habitat for fish and increase carbon sequestration in sediments. When designing restoration projects, we must consider concepts like resilience and functional redundancy. Resilience refers to an ecosystem's capacity to absorb disturbances and reorganize while retaining its essential functions. Functional redundancy means that multiple species can perform similar ecological roles, which can buffer the system when one species is lost. However, redundancy has limits. Losing a keystone species may produce cascading changes even if many other species are present. That is why restoration planners assess both species identity and functional traits, not just species counts. Measuring the outcomes of restoration requires robust monitoring. Researchers commonly use remote sensing to track vegetation cover and landscape change over time. Biodiversity indices and before-after control impact designs are used to quantify changes in species composition and ecosystem function. These methods help determine whether a project meets its goals. Let me give you a case study that illustrates these points. In a coastal bay where seagrass had been lost due to sediment runoff, managers combined upstream erosion control with targeted seagrass planting. They monitored chlorophyll concentration, sedimentation rates, and fish abundance for 5 years. The combination of watershed management and in-situ restoration improved water clarity, allowed seagrass to take hold, and ultimately increased juvenile fish habitat. This case shows that successful restoration often requires addressing the drivers of degradation. It is rarely sufficient to plant species without fixing the underlying problems such as pollution, invasive species, or hydrological alteration. I also want to emphasize the social dimension. Local communities are essential partners in restoration. In Bangladesh, mangrove programs worked well when communities were given rights to harvest sustainably and benefit from improved fisheries. Conservation that discounts local livelihoods often fails. To conclude, understanding ecosystem dynamics and the role of keystone species gives us powerful tools for conservation and restoration. We need rigorous measurement, adaptive management, and community engagement. When these elements are combined, we increase the likelihood that restored ecosystems will be resilient and provide the services people depend on.
Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
One of the most striking examples of a trophic cascade occurred in Yellowstone when wolves were reintroduced.
For more TOEFL mock tests, as well as IELTS and Cambridge practice, visit www.spinta.org. We provide updated tests every single day, AI feedback for your speaking and writing responses, and access to a wide range of high-quality mock tests to help you prepare with confidence.